All right, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have an amazing guest, Zach Bell, veteran with a sign, combat infantry marine. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on. It's been we've been kind of in the same circles for a while, and right before we started this, my brother was in the same unit as you were back in '08, so that's pretty cool, and
Yeah,
whatnot. But yeah, man, let's kind of jump right into it. What got you into the Marine Corps?
opportunity. I wanted opportunity. I wanted to serve my country.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's the number one thing you can do to change the socioeconomic status of you and your family is
hmm
joining the military. Everything else is, I wanted to go to college, and I remember 9/11 happening. I just wanted to serve my country.
yeah. And what years did you go in, or what was kind of the? You said change economic status. Did you grow up like poor or different?
hmm
Like
Yeah, I just
where'd you
had a
grow up, and what
very.
was?
I grew up in Memphis, and I just had a very, you know, traditional bad childhood. My father was only good at being abusive and drinking. My mother um, uh, was not a good mother either, so it was just kind of like we were just like a massive inconvenience, my brother and I. And so, like at a very young age, I had to take care of myself and my brother, and to really become an adult much sooner than I would have ever wanted to be. Um, which resulted in me wanting to like literally as soon as I could leave the environment I was in to leave because it
Yeah,
just wasn't it wasn't comfortable. It was never made me feel safe. I was never told things that like made me I don't know what the right word is. It just wasn't a good childhood. That's all there is to it.
yeah,
So like I don't know. I feel like it's kind of like being a dead horse a little bit, but like most people have that in common. Like most people join the military, their parents didn't give them hugs, so they go somewhere else. Like you
hmm
know, um,
yeah. That was like a common thread. I know guys that
yeah,
were joining. It was like broken homes.
yeah.
I hate to say it, like last ditch effort. I was doing coke in college and I
Mhm.
got kicked out or something, and then it was weird because then you see it was almost the outlier that
Mhm.
was like, oh yeah, I was pretty good in school and family was great,
Mhm.
and I just wanted to join. That was like the smaller portion.
Yeah,
We all ended up
it's
in the infantry.
yeah, and like, no, I mean, there's just so few people that honestly come from like good families that go to that type of environment. Not
hmm
everyone needs to have it, but like that was just my circumstance. Being on like food programs, going to schools and things like that
hmm
you know, until my mother met my stepdad, but that didn't. By that time, there was nothing really. I don't know. It just wasn't a
Yeah,
good place to grow up.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know how else to say it. Like, I
No,
don't
yeah,
want to
yeah,
like, I don't want to like bash the whole system because I don't care. And to be honest, I don't want any more attention towards my family.
hmm
But like, I'm not going to ever shy away from it. Like, they're the complete opposite of who I am as a parent.
yeah,
And in
yeah.
general, that whole generation is the worst. So like as
hmm
parents, there's like all these statistics that have come out now that like 30 millennial dads spend 33% more time with their kids than their parents spent with them, and it's because I feel like this whole like our whole generation was just kind of like MTV latchkey kids that were left to our own devices and didn't really have the people that should have been there for you. So
Yeah.
overall,
Yeah, and I agree with you too. I think my wife brings that up to me a lot because I'm a freelancer, so it's just like
mm-hmm.
I come and go, but that's my
Mm-hmm.
priority is my daughter during the day. Like I get her up, I get her ready for school,
Mm-hmm.
and I pick her up, and then I play with her a lot. Sometimes my wife gets jealous a little bit because I almost spend more time with her because of the way my schedule is. But when
Mm-hmm.
it does come to parents, though, we do definitely emphasize more time, and then like I
Mm-hmm.
said, she's only 2.5 now, so we'll see how things expand. But I do agree with you. That's something across the board. I think that our generation is much more involved, or
It's weird. I mean, I love my kids. I do the same thing. I take them both to school every day until I don't need to because they're driving. Which one of them will be driving
Mhm.
soon? And then like the other one will be in high school, and like time is short, and don't get a lot of it. And like I just love being around them. They're my favorite people. So I don't understand it. I just don't understand
Mhm.
it as a person.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
Yeah.
this is two
And
dads
that,
talking. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's the podcast. I'll just do
Yeah,
that. To
Tyler's
today's
gonna
talk.
love this. Yeah, Tyler's gonna love this. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's good. I mean, well, it's good to hear. I think that's something. It sounds like you had your kids a lot earlier on in life. I just, like I said, I have a 2.5-year-old, and I got one. My son is due in June.
yeah,
So I'm kind of starting anew, but I think it's something that we, like I said, it's like you see either how your parents raised you or how you could wish you could do things better, or even it sounds like real nerd talk to me, but when people talk about films or even like books,
mm-hmm.
like people take inspiration books, like for me, like films were like when they wrote out characters, like how you wanted to be, like you see parents like taking care of their kids or wanting to be more involved.
Yeah,
Like it's almost like you like take that was like a life lesson that was put into films, and obviously books was where a lot of people get them from. But like for me, that's where I got it from, like film. Like I'd like to be like that parent. Like I'd like to be,
yeah,
everyone wants to be the hero, but like can you be a good parent? Can you be there when your kids need you? Like all those type of things, and like taking that, that those bullet points, like and I don't say cheesy films, but just taking inspiration from the films that like I watched. It was like, oh yeah, that's the way I'd like to be. Like I want to
mm-hmm.
be wrestling with my kids. I did a lot of things without them in life so that,
Yeah,
before they showed up, so that I don't have to feel like I missed something or I didn't do what I wanted to do,
yeah,
and my wife corrects that, and like I still want to do those things, and like I do have to catch myself, and that is a bit of a tension, and a little bit in our relationship where it's like I want to go back to Ukraine and do more filming or interviews or go to the front line, or or even with Israel, or all these things going on.
mm-hmm.
She wasn't real happy when I stepped foot in Ukraine back in 2022, so, and I don't blame her. But I also know I can't keep doing that. Be like, fuck it. My family will be there. And it's
Yeah,
like, I like to keep with one marriage, it's like the running joke. I'd like to stick with one,
yeah,
that's it's like, cause a lot of guys are like, yeah, I'm on my third wife, but here,
yeah.
it's like, you know,
I'm not
I want,
changing. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And it's God bless them. I like those guys because they're close friends. But at the same time, I'm like, I'd like to stick with one, and compromise and go from there. And I do agree with you. I think that's something with our generation that we are trying to spend more time with our kids. I was talking with my wife. I feel like we can afford things a little bit better. I don't know. That's
I
like a weird
mean,
thing to say. Like,
things
like
were significantly cheaper. The economy was a little bit better then.
yeah,
I just think there's just generationally they just didn't care. I don't know. I don't
yeah,
want to excuse anything
yeah,
because like
yeah.
it was. I remember it was like rare to me that like I had this friend and his mom would take him to school every day, and it was only one mom I knew like my whole K through 12, like only one
Mm-hmm.
mom, and I don't know, um, you know, um, I don't know, I just
Yeah.
like I
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
yeah I don't you know but it is most interesting to me that like it's a measurable outcome. 33%, that's a third. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
That means they were really
Yeah.
bad. Like
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
easily able to be measured. But
Yeah. And then they said too, was it like before that, the generation before that was like 5%? They said like changing diapers. That because I've seen
yeah,
that
dude,
stat
but
too,
like
where it
the
was like
things
something
were so
like
much different. Yeah, but things were different then.
yeah.
Like, it was the '80s and the '90s. There was like Brooks and Dunn on the radio. Like, it wasn't that hard
Yeah.
of a time, really. Like, Clinton was in office. Things weren't as insane as it's painted out to be. And then prior to that, there were
Mm-hmm.
like several wars that were happening. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just. I mean, for me, what I pulled. I always say like I just want to be like Kevin McAllister's dad. I want to make enough money to book first class tickets to Paris on Christmas Eve. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
type
Yeah.
of money you want to make. But like
Exactly.
those
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
like the parents and role models I saw, and so I pulled a lot of that. I pulled a lot of
Mm-hmm.
my mythology or like influences from Star Wars and things like that. Where like the strong masculine roles were like Han Solo and
Mm-hmm.
Indiana
Mm-hmm.
Jones and Doc Holliday. Like those are like my
Yeah.
three role models growing up.
Yeah.
I know Harrison Ford played two of them, but they're two different people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's really what I took a lot of inspiration from, of like a man standing up for things that he cares about, looking out for those he loves and things like that. But like what
Mm-hmm.
I really took away from like all three of them in particular was like I believe that everyone, men in particular, have a sense for adventure that if you don't like acknowledge it and embrace it, like it'll make everything harder. But like we want adventure.
Before we keep going with this podcast, I want to drop this week's discount code for 9line Apparel. We're not just a brand, we're a lifestyle that celebrates the spirit of freedom, courage, and American values. Go check out our gear, including hoodies, glassware, flags, jackets, hats, patches, and much more. All material is ethically sourced, so every shirt you buy is free of slave labor. As a veteran-owned and operated company, we take pride in giving back to those who've served. Your purchase helps us contribute to charitable initiatives supporting veterans and first responders. This episode's discount code is VETSIGN20 for 20% off 9line Apparel products. VETSIGN20. I say again, VETSIGN20. Not 10, not 15, 20%. Not 25, that's a bit excessive. So get over to the store and get yourself 20% off your next purchase. While you're at it, like, listen, and subscribe to the 9line podcast for future discount codes and more conversations with amazing guests like today. Now back to the podcast.
Like, we want it bad.
Yeah, yep. Absolutely, especially like in the veteran community. I mean, like I said, you were getting away with the Marine Corps, or like, hey, like I'm joining the Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. I'm going on the same adventures. The same with me. Like that's something that's been instilled when I was pretty young, whereas like I'm going to go and rock and roll on my own time. Like we're going to join the Marine Corps, try to pursue this, try to go that adventure. And then I remember thinking that way. And then before I'm settling down, but even then, like it carries over. Like that's why, like, cause I agree with you. Like the Kevin McAllister thing is like my daughter is like, we have a passport for her and she's been to 3 different countries before the age of 3. You know what I mean? I'm like, awesome. We took her to Ireland, we took her to Puerto Rico, and now she's just went to Mexico, and but that's a priority for us. And that's, something that we still, it lets us, I don't know, like you still have some of that life, you're a parent, you obviously have way more responsibilities, but it's almost a nice, like, awesome. Like we're going to take this trip and take her with us regardless, and
well, I mean, like it's just your job to do those things. And like when you're a parent, your whole goal is to create something that's good enough to leave you, which sucks because they leave. And so like you're trying to create an independent entity, and it's hard to do that because it's like the more stuff I'm always like, I don't want them to leave. I just want them to stay. Like I just, like I want them to stay here and live with us forever and like have a big like thing. But I know they have to go on and start their own lives, and so that's what's hard. But it's one of the greatest things I've ever done, being a father and to be able to be a part of their lives. I mean, when we first started talking, I was like, I can't do it. I'll be in Disney for a week. And you're like, oh, cool, have fun. I was like, it's not just fun. Like I'm going for my daughter's cheer competitions, and I go several times a year, twice actually, just for this. And like, but my whole calendar, everything is built around these blocks of like, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing, the end,
Yeah. Yeah. And so your kids are older then, and I think I saw on your post too. So did you go in? What year did you go in? What's that?
We're going to keep them. Yeah. Sorry.
All right. Yeah. What years did you go in, and when did that start? Like in your first deployments, and I know, like I said, I believe on your post it's like you having your second daughter by 2010, or what was the? Yep. Yeah. So what was that whole time frame, and what was that like? I mean, I didn't have my kids till way later, so I don't. I mean, and leaving my daughter for 2 weeks, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gone for 2 weeks. Like
I'm just more brave than you, is what it comes down to. No, so I don't mean that. Please don't.
I'll clip that out.
No, in 2007, I enlisted February 2007. There's a lot of stuff that was happening in the world, but one of the biggest things that was happening was Live Leak. And Live Leak doesn't get enough credit. I have a sign that says I enlisted because of Live Leak, and I remember like seeing like the Iraq War videos, like do. It was like bad music, but they didn't know any better. It's like they didn't understand transitions. It was just like one rock song and like against movement, just spraying. And so you'd see all that stuff, and then I enlisted, and I wanted to be an infantry rifleman, which you know, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be that job. That is a job. Every Marine is not a rifleman, but that was a job that I wanted, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like I wanted to be on the front lines doing it. So I picked 0311. Boom, cool. Go to boot camp, go to SOI. During that time, me and my wife get engaged. And at SOI, they're like, "Hey, you're going to 1-6," and you don't really know any of that stuff or like what that means at the time. But I do remember people being like, "That's a cool unit. Like that's a pretty
Mm-hmm.
cool unit." And then I'd go on to learn about things like the French Fortigé, the Bella Woods, the Fallujahs, the Ramatis, all the different places that 1-6 is 5th and 6th Marines in particular, the invasion of Iraq with 5th. They've always been on the front lines of everything. And so when I got to the barracks, was it July 2000? Yeah, July 2007. It was a little jarring, but it was
Mm-hmm.
fun. It's like they were catcalling us, throwing stuff at us, screaming. They were. It was like literally like,
Yeah.
and they're all like shirtless and like, "Come here, boot," just like cooking on. Not supposed to have grills. They're out on the catwalk, just cooking, dipping, drinking, smoking. Boys being boys, bros being bros, and just it was
Mm-hmm.
hectic. It was hectic for like a month. It was just them screaming at you, you know. And so
Mm-hmm.
just did that, did the workup, and they're like, "Hey, you're on the 24th MEU. You're going to the Mediterranean." I was like, "Okay, that kind of sucks." Because in the infantry, if you don't get deployed, you're a boot forever, which is
Yep.
a curse. Have you talked about what it means to be a boot?
But no, I haven't. No, I mean, like I was fortunate. Like dude, I got to my unit
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "We're not going to haze you. We're gonna train you," because I was the last 10 guys to fill in like last minute slots.
Yeah. Well,
So
it
like I
wasn't
got
like
to the unit and boom, I was off.
it wasn't like weird hazing, like sexual weird stuff I hear that people do now, and it was nothing like that. Like there's a line,
Yeah.
like don't for we'll drop tops
Yeah.
and meet you outside, but like it was stuff like you go police call and then they dump a bunch of cigarettes behind you, Oh, you
Mhm.
missed that. Oh, you start over, and then you got to empty your pockets. That's what was happening. Nothing like
Yeah.
insane or cleaning up places that weren't yours. Always having to go do working parties, go to the army, go to this, go to that, blah 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 blah. blah.
Yeah.
You just don't have any allocation of your time, and you can never, And if anyone asks you a question, you better know the answer, or your mind and your body will be punished. And so
Yep.
it was just a bunch of that. But I was like, dude, I'll be a boot forever. This sucks so bad, And we went on ship for like a month, and that sucked because if you're on ship and you don't have a job, you're in the way, and you're a boot and you're a Marine, you're in the way. It's like the lowest of lowest of low. Like I remember
Mm-hmm.
I actually had this right in the rain thing, literally this one in my
Mm-hmm.
pocket. And I would it's about the size of a book that I had. And I would read a book and I would turn it down to turn the page because I couldn't turn the page with it on my stomach because the coffin racks were so small. So,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that was it
But
until they said, "Hey, you're going to Afghanistan," and then it was just like everything changed overnight.
my brother, like I said right before we started the podcast, he got attached to 1-6 Combat Engineers,
Hell yeah.
24th MEU. And so he was with you guys. I'd have to ask him the specifics. And he called me up. I was in my second deployment, and I was in the Fallujah provinces as a scout sniper.
Nice.
So he hits me up, and he goes, dude, we're going to Afghanistan.
No.
And this is how ignorant everyone was about Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And I was like, Afghanistan?
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck is going on in Afghanistan? I was like, you're going to be a boot the rest of your career.
Yeah.
Didn't know anything. And he just was like, fuck,
Dude, it's a curse.
And,
it's a curse.
It's a curse.
You're just
curse.
like,
and, yeah, exactly.
unless you're a
It's just
sergeant
like- it's just
major
like-
who sells fitness online who didn't get a combat action over 20 years, let the record show.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what I mean. It's like, and so, he's a combat engineer, so it's a little bit different, but I agree with you. Like the emotional aspect of like, fuck, I'm going to be a boot. Like as an infantry Marine is the worst.
I mean,
and so, but yeah, he goes, And I'm like, okay, I mean, I'm coming back from my second deployment in February, end of
What
February.
unit were
I
you
don't remember
in?
when so I was in 3-3. I
Okay.
was out of Hawaii,
Yeah.
3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines. And we get back and I'm starting to hear some rumblings. You guys, I don't know what time frame, but basically within about a month,
Hmm.
Afghanistan gets on everyone's radar. It is like insane.
Yeah.
Like, and then we start getting your guys' after action. So 1-6 sniper platoon starts sending all the after actions, and I've talked about it a million times. It was shocking, like the amount of kills that the scout sniper platoon was
Yeah.
getting, and we
Rob
were like,
Richards
"What
was a
the?"
good friend of mine.
Yeah,
Rob,
yeah, and
I
so
knew
it was,
him, and that was his team. I mean, he was in that platoon.
yeah.
I knew him then,
Mhm.
like when he was at Boot, he was just, trying to do his thing, move up in the teams, and yeah,
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is like, and so my brother then went on. They, like, and you said you guys went in into Helmand, and it was like all hell
dude,
broke
it
loose. So,
was
you know,
it.
yeah,
We were doing it. We were doing the Lord's work. And we had a
yeah,
mute, and we had, that means you have direct attachments to everything that you're doing, close air support, artillery,
mm-hmm,
mortars, like everything. I mean,
mm-hmm,
it was dangerous, but we always had control of the battle space the entire time. Like literally from start to
mm-hmm,
finish, we had massive control over everything that we did. And like that's actually where I met Rob Richards. You know,
mm-hmm,
and his team was attached to my platoon. We ended up losing a guy. Actually, it was just a horrible circumstance. Pushed into a field, we
mm-hmm,
couldn't see it. There was machine gun bunkers hidden, and just caught him. Caught this guy named Cooper, and really good dude, like a senior guy who was like he would like come out and like talk to you when you were on post and stuff, and was like kind. And it was kinetic, and they told us on February, and so I told us like in February, and prior to leaving, my wife was pregnant with our first child, and I was just like, dude, I'm gonna miss this. And by the grace of God, we were home on leave, and she went into labor, and Alpha Company actually left for Kandahar Airfield, and then because you had to be there for 3 weeks, and I called up and I was like, hey, I'm gonna be here for this. I'm gonna stay. And to my surprise, they're like, that's fine, just leave with Charlie Company. And so I was here for 2 days with her and left, and I was like in Monday, Tuesday in Afghanistan. Well, on my way to Afghanistan by Friday, and
mm-hmm.
it was
Yeah,
just gnarly. It was absolutely gnarly. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, leaving my daughter. That so far.
yeah, yeah, and that's tough too because my brother, he had his daughter in the middle of all that in June of 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So he said you guys were in this massive battle, and there was like a lull in it, and or wherever he was
Mm-hmm.
at, and they brought cigars out, and he got the call on the sat phone,
That's pretty cool.
and so it was wild. And so I remember, but I saw his daughter before him, so I went to meet him off the buses in October of
Mm-hmm.
'08.
That's
I saw his
that's when we
daughter.
got back.
He showed up. Yeah, yeah, and that was nuts. And I was like, hey man, congrats. And then we were both combat veterans, and it was like this,
Yeah.
both brothers, like we had seen action. And then I was home on pre-deployment leave, so he got back, and then within 2 weeks I was gone, and I was in Bagram. So it
You were
was
in
like this switch
Afghanistan,
over.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was
So
nuts.
how
It
many
was like
tours
this
did you
crazy switch
do
over.
in Iraq?
So I did 2 deployments, '06 in the Haditha Triad and in Barwana, and then '07 to '08, that was the Scout Sniper Platoon in the Fallujah provinces. And then I volunteered for Afghanistan as a combat advisor from '08 to '09.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, man, I got lucky. They got their money's worth out of me in 4 years, 4 months, or 4 years, 3 months, something like that. 3 deployments, 24 months total. So it was like boom, 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 boom. See ya. Here's your DD 14. Get
Yeah,
the fuck out.
it was intense. I mean, like I know Iraq, so much of it was like ambush based tactics with like triggering
Mm-hmm.
an ambush with like an ID, crippling a vehicle, and things like that. And like all the
Yeah.
seniors who had been in like the pushes in Iraq and stuff were like Afghanistan's so gnarly. That was just like with all of they. I mean,
Yeah.
it's my team leader just got back from Ramadi, and he was like, this is insane," you know. And like
Yeah.
I didn't do both. I just did Afghanistan twice, and so that's the only thing I have. But I just remember them being like, "This is not like what it's supposed to be," and I was just like, "Oh no." Um,
Yeah, and every battle space is
yeah, yeah,
different
yeah.
too. I mean, it was Afghanistan is an absolute monster,
Mhm.
and every valley is its own. Like you guys in the South, you guys were hitting IEDs and bunkers and all this stuff. Where us in the Northeast, we didn't have to worry about IEDs as much, but you had to get worried about being overran, and you were outnumbered, and you had the low ground.
Yeah,
Like so it was just the tactics just completely
yeah.
changed.
I only saw like a
So when people
handful of
were like,
IEDs both times though. It was really
yeah,
just it was
yeah,
really
let me
just
tell you,
amassing on us too. Like they would move so quick.
yeah,
It was just like, bro, this is gnarly.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. The way they maneuvered, you could just tell they were way more
Hmm.
experienced. Like Iraq was frustrating because of the urban environment, and it was way more. You're just like you turn corners and you get sniped at, or an IED goes
Yeah,
off. So like the tension, the action, it was just your nerves were on fire
hmm.
for 7 months because you just like turn a corner and a fucking sniper round would go by your head.
Damn.
Or there's guys that we knew that just they turned the corner and boom, their fucking face got caved in, and you're just like, holy shit. And we had lots of the Chechen snipers, like
Yeah,
experienced dudes, and I almost got taken out fucking how many times just by luck. And then you had the IEDs, and so you're just like going around, and we were dismounted, but then they started hitting us as dismounted. So like I felt bad for our mobile section, dude. Those guys were just getting
yeah,
slammed like left and right, and it's just like fuck, you feel bad. And then we were like, well, at least we're foot
hmm.
mobile. And then they started hitting us with IEDs like foot mobile,
Dude,
and it
it's so funny
sucked.
you say
It
that.
fucking
Like
sucked.
people would ask me when we came back, and they're like, "What type of vehicles did you use?" And I was like, "What? I didn't use any vehicles." And like
Yeah.
even the mindset of like how to traverse the AO was just like, so you didn't use an MRAP, so you didn't use a Humvee, and I was like, no, we didn't. Like there's
Yeah.
one road and it's covered in bombs, and we're not going to walk down the one road. And they're like, oh, you
Mm-hmm.
walked the whole time, and I was like, everywhere, helicopters
Yeah.
in,
Yeah. And then like,
and that was it.
mhm. And the irony too is like if you're like you're less of a target, you can like zig and
Mm-hmm.
zag. Everything's got its time and place. But like, yeah, the Iraq, man, they were just turning our Humvees inside
Yeah,
out. And then we got the MRAPs, the second deployment. But the first one, dude, I mean, I remember I'd see mushroom clouds come out
mm.
like on post, and then the shockwave would hit me, and then we'd call it in, and it was one of our buddies got hit, and it just like butter, just, and I can't believe he lived. Like the entire engine block and the whole front's gone, and
Jeez,
he's like sitting in a crater, and they took photos. And he's like smiling and shit. You're just like,
what a
dude,
dude.
like you're so fucking lucky. Yeah, and it was just, but that stuff would happen all the time, and that was just sucked. And then we also got, I'm sure you guys experienced like IDF, all the indirect fire. We were getting hammered in
Yeah,
Iraq. My first
I mean
deployment, they were just getting blasted with that.
there was some at like Kandahar Airfield, but like that wasn't even that big of a deal. And I even did a video about
Mhm.
it. Like Toby Keith came one time and played for us, and he started singing
Mhm.
the Taliban song, and then the air
Yeah.
raid sirens went off, and and so the Air Force like grabbed him and was like, they don't want him to die. They're like, come here. And so we
Yeah.
all start booing and like throwing stuff at the stage and everything until he comes back out to finish the Taliban song while the Taliban were attacking us. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
the most
Yeah.
military American moment of my life. But like that was basically it.
Mhm.
I mean, they were really just trying to lure us into like mowing us down with machine guns or different things. But then like weird stuff would happen.
Mhm.
Like we were pushing Garms. I remember this kid. This kid was screaming. He was in a truck, and an RPG had pierced through the door. And I don't know how. I don't know how this happened, but it had like stuck like right into his butt cheek. He was the driver, and like
Yeah.
RPGs are just that little, was it the black primer
Yep.
cap? I can't remember what it's called, but that's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how it's triggered, and by the grace of God, it had slid right into the socket, and it had not blown up. So he was just screaming, and there's the tail fin of this RPG sticking out, and the EOD's like, "We're gonna try
Yeah.
and pull this out. We might all die, but like we'll see what happens." And I heard
Yeah.
I
Let's
heard
see
they
what
gave him the
happens. Yeah.
RPG after they disarmed it. That was like the rumor, but like,
Yeah. Oh my God. That would be phenomenal if
yeah,
I mean, we tried getting shrapnel back from Iraq as souvenirs, and I swear to God, I got one of my pieces back. and I don't know where it is to this day. And I could have swore I know I got it back, but I don't know if it
See,
got lost in my movements.
all those things that y'all did in Iraq that the customs dudes were not having it. We came to a village and this kid was smacking a bunch of people with nunchucks that he had made, and he was just attacking people. And I was like, stop! And he like came up to attack people, and we just like took them from him. And I had him,
Yeah.
and I'm leaving not Kandahar, it's called Kyrgyzstan. It was an Air Force base, and
Yep, I remember that.
I go in there, and this kid in custom goes, "What are these?" And I go, "They're mine." He goes, "No, they're not." He goes, "We're taking them." I go, "You're not taking those. Those are mine." And he goes, "These are a weapon." And I go, "So is this gun, dude. Like, what's your deal?" And he's like, "Well, we're taking them." And I was like, "Nope." And I grabbed him and I just broke him. Like, I just broke him right there. And I was like, "If I can't have them, you can't have them." I was like, You're not gonna go home and tell people you went to Afghanistan and took these from somebody." And I just threw them in the trash.
Yeah.
I was so mad. They took all of our stuff. They took all of our stuff there. It was so upsetting.
That was the difference with being in an infantry unit. And when we went through as my third deployment, and as snipers, you get away with stuff too. But we came back, we were a small unit. We were combat advisors. Like, we were flying commercial and into like Oki and all such. So like we were like on our own. So we got away with stuff. Like we were shipping stuff back to the States, and like the National Guard was the running the post office. So they weren't even checking.
Yeah.
So like wild shit was getting back. But that happened to my buddy. But as an infantry unit though, they do crack down on you, because my first deployment, my buddies, a blast went through our room, a 120 millimeter mortar round, and it just like showered everybody with shrapnel. And my buddies had shrapnel, in their body, and they were like, and we'd go through the metal detector, and they were pretty anal about it. And he's just like kept setting it off, and they're like, "What is it?" And he just points to his arm, and you could still see the chunks of shrapnel sticking out of his arm. And to this day he still kind of pulls it out. And then I believe he had the VA, it wasn't going to pay for him to remove it. So he just went to like a private surgeon and was like, "Can you get the shrapnel out of my arm?" He's like, "Yep, 10 grand or whatever." So he just paid it, and they just fucking went in and, cut it all out of his arm, shit like that. But it was funny. He was trying to get through, and they were dinging him every time. And we're like, let him through.
Dude, yeah. There's a bunch of heroes on everywhere but the front lines. So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make this like a bash session. This is just coming back to me. It's just so weird too, because like it wasn't contraband. You had thought I was sneaking in with an AK, like we had like random stuff. I had scarves. They let me come through, but they like complained about it, and they were like stuff I bought for my wife and kids. I had some sandals that they were like, "You can't have these." They threw away all the movies. Anybody had movies, they threw them away.
Really? That's wild.
Like the bootleg movies. And I was like, "Dude, who do you work for? Disney? Like, leave this alone. This isn't your job."
That's pretty insane. That's really anal.
And it's your fault because you guys were sneaking like C4 and like all sorts of cash and stuff. You found, y'all couldn't find WMDs, but y'all were sneaking, cash in canteens trying to get it through. You're like, "Oh yeah, we paid the locals."
Well, shit, I wish that was us. That wasn't us. That was probably the early days, the 03
No, I
days.
had some squad leaders who came through with some money. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no shit.
He kept one of them.
It was that. Yeah, dude, that's wild. So then you guys get back from that, and then you spin up. I mean, you guys hit Marja pretty quick. I was actually in Afghanistan as a contractor then, and then I was getting your counter IED. I was doing metal detector work, and so I was getting your guys' after actions and all the other units going through Marja in 2010. Early, whatever. And so what was that kind of spin up like? And then,
nobody told us we were going to Marja until November. So they told us we were going to shut down a base in Iraq. We were going to be in Iraq for like, 30 to 60 to maybe 90 days. And I was like, that sounds awesome, and, and part of that news was like, "Hey, let's try to have another kid. Like, if I go long, it doesn't matter. I'll be home," and all this stuff. So my wife gets pregnant with our second child. And then November, President Obama goes to West Point and he announces a troop surge in Afghanistan. And that same day is when they told us, "Hey, you're going to a place called Marja. It's a Taliban stronghold, and that's where you're going. You have 30 days, less than that actually. And that
Hmm.
was an absolute nightmare, emotionally, um, mentally, logistically. Like the whole town gouged everyone, which I hated. Like they didn't have enough storage stuff all of a sudden, and prices doubled on everything because a whole unit, 1/6, literally had to like get everything shipped and moved
Hmm.
and stored, and like just to try and find a place to do all that stuff was hard. Move my wife out was hard. She's pregnant, and she has my firstborn daughter. So like all these things are happening, and it was like a nightmare, to be honest. Um, because like
Hmm.
we had done things like to prepare for everything, and like the wool just got, the carpet just got pulled out from under us at the last second. Because I was like, even if I go to rack for like 90 days, who cares? Like, as long as I don't get run over by a
Yeah.
forklift, like I'll be fine. This is like green zone Wi-Fi Iraq. Like it's fine. There's no concern.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they told us we're going to Marja. And December we left, and off we went. And then very
Hmm.
shortly after we got there, I remember we went to a place called Camp Dwyer. But when we left, it was Fob Dwyer. Fob Dwyer was a solar shade, and when we came back like a year later, they're like, "Welcome to Camp Dwyer. Here's your red barrel. Check in. The Wi-Fi passwords. Blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh my god!
Yeah.
Like, what happened here?" But it had
Hmm.
amassed so quickly, and and not long after that, we started running ops out of like Fiddler's Green and Mojave's, those two bases south of Marja, just probing the security sector and just getting into it as quickly as we could.
Yeah. 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 So that was a pretty hectic deployment then that you guys had. Was that pretty
Yeah,
intense?
yeah, it was
Yeah.
without a doubt, one of the most trying times of my life, and everyone else, because there were so many things that had happened. It's 2009, 2010. There's more cameras than ever. There's more phones than ever. There's reporters everywhere. I
Mhm.
did not like that, and I could
Yeah.
tell by the way people were like talking about it, and like the pomp and circumstance associated with everything, that like this was going to be like highly
Hmm.
covered, and I would just have to make peace with it. You know,
Hmm.
there's so many things that have come from it. Just the Gunny Walgren speech is one of the most famous speeches ever given. You know,
Yeah. I remember that.
yeah, which is
Yep. Saw that.
cool because
Yep.
only it was just my company there, Alpha Company. He was our company gunnery sergeant. We were the only ones there. We were staging to go. We had been probing the security sector for like a few weeks, and they brought us back, and they're like, "We're actually going to just insert into Margin and go." And so they had
Hmm.
brought us back, and so all day we had to listen to like generals and commanders and colonels, and just a bunch of people. Like it's so weird because like no one's like, I wonder what a general will say. No one's ever thought that, like, ever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and we'd done that all day, and so we're in the final staging area, literally getting ready to walk on the flight line. All the other companies are like off to their own thing, and it's just Alpha Company there, and something he was known for, like giving these like really cool speeches actually, and he he just like came out there and just started doing it, and it was kind of exactly what we wanted and needed to hear in that moment. And then an hour later, we were on the bird flying into Marja, and it started literally the
Hmm.
second we landed. It started happening. Just round start
Yeah.
as soon as the sun could come up. Just you know, supposedly there were some AA guns that were
Hmm.
fired. I don't know if I didn't hear any. I heard there were, and it was just
Hmm.
kinetic every single day of the deployment. Not if you would see the enemy, but when you know if you got in the open, you
Yeah.
weren't paying attention. They snatched you up. If you weren't looking, it was game over. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then so you're senior
Mm-hmm.
Marine at this point then. How did the new guys take it then? I mean, like you guys, like I said, you were boot that first
Yeah.
time around pretty intense, and now you're senior
I
Marine,
mean,
like you said, passing that wisdom on, How was that for you then stepping into
I
that
had
role?
a really good squad leader. In Garmser, towards the end of it, he had started rotating people in different roles. like where you would start acting like a team lead. You would make you a team leader for a patrol, or even a squad leader for a patrol, and like everyone did that. So we did like on the job training there. So so all during the workup, I was the first team leader, the assistant patrol leader, or actually for a while I was a squad leader during the workup because mine left. He went to ISLIC, whatever they call it now, infantry squad leader school or infantry squad leader course, and so like I just really invested as much as I could into them, into my team leaders, into my team, and just trying to make them as good as I could. And at one point I even talked to my wife about it. Like I just wanted them to be as successful as possible. So I'm probably not gonna be the best dad or husband, but like I just need to do this right. And so they we had spent so much time together that all of them really just exceeded all expectations and did better and stepped up to the challenge in the biggest way possible. I mean, it's we lost so many people due to that in May we lost someone in our platoon, and we had to do a reorganization of our platoon, and actually the whole company had to do a reorganization because we were spread so thin throughout the battle space in Marja that I went from being a team leader to a squad leader, and I finished out that deployment May, June, July, the rest of May, and then June and July as a squad leader. Um, and it was one of the hardest, most trying times of my life, but I honestly gave it the best I could and put everything I could into trying to protect these dudes at all costs. And, after, after all that was said and done, I just had this kind of like moment when I was talking to the retention specialist, and he's like, "Do you want to go to squad leader school?" And I was just like, "No." Like, "Do you want to go to SEER?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to do any of this stuff." And he was asking me to reenlist, which most people don't know that is that you either ask to reenlist or you get asked to reenlist. And my squad leader had told me treat this like a job, so when it comes time, you're able to make decisions you want. And he was like giving me options to build my package, and he's like, "I'll accept it." And I was just like, "I don't want to do any of this." And I just seen so much, and so much had happened that like I was like, I can't do this for the next 20 years of my life. Like I can't not see my daughter the day she's born, and then have to save a French reporter's life to get a cell phone from him so I can call home and be like, "Are you okay? I love you. I'll talk to you soon." Like all these different things that happen. And I was like, I just can't do it, which is, I know this is really long, but that's kind of like the reason that like, I know myself and all the 1-6 guys really struggle with like how to view Marja and as this moment, right, in your lives personally, because like it became and is such a bigger thing than all of us that it's hard because like people aren't just talking about a thing, they're talking about me. They're talking about my Marines that didn't come home. They're talking about my Marines that lost the fight after we came home, and all these different things. So when people were like, be like, "Rah, rah, rah," be like the Marines at Marja, I'm like, "Hey man, like I appreciate that, but you're not really sure what you're talking about." Like I saw they made a marketing campaign on Marines.com afterwards, and I was infuriated because I was like, "No, this isn't. Don't do this." Like you put us through the meat grinder. You're not going to use us for sales now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That might be immature of me, and I'm working through that, but that's just where I'm at today.
No, I get it. I mean, like I 100% agree with you. Like I totally get it. So
I feel like I'm rambling. Am I rambling?
Did you do your? No. That's great. Like I'm like, this is great. It's awesome. It's awesome because I'm hearing your perspective on the 1-6, and to me, it's close to me because my brother. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I think in my later years, I'm starting to talk. I've always talked with my close friends, but it is nice within this community now. And I think probably in the last year, I've just I didn't talk about anything for about 10 years, especially with like, the Silver Star and everything that happened publicly. And it was always very few people privately. But now I feel like people are, I don't know, like to me, I feel like now trying to tell more stories. And so, yeah, I think that's one of my goals too, is like hearing your story,
Mhm.
like, especially with, 1-6
Mhm.
and 08, because that's close to me as my brother, and
Mhm.
then Marja, and being able to get those stories out there for future generations. And I mean, it's crazy because, Afghan ended,
Yeah.
in 21, but it, but it still feels like yesterday. And on top of that, like but it's so long
Mhm.
ago too, but it's not. And so it's just trying to, like I said, these stories, or it's like everyone wants to hear this, or like I want to hear this, because to me, it just it starts connecting dots with things that I was
Yeah.
there too. Like I was there in 2010. I was getting your
Yep.
after action reports. It's that feeling of everyone's in the fight, and also sometimes, like I've talked with guys in my own combat advisor team, but we weren't that big. We're like 20 strong tops. And even then there's about 12 of
Mhm.
us that were close. Dude, I still hear new things
Yeah.
15 years later, and it's just like, just talking things out is,
Well, and
it's
it
just great
goes
to
like
hear.
that too. Like, I mean, I'm farther now than I've ever been from it, and we'll probably plan a reunion. We planned a 10-year reunion in 2020. It was awesome. Myself and different representatives from each company, we like arranged and got everyone together in DC, and it was fucking incredible.
Mhm.
So we're gonna do another one. Excuse me. We're gonna do another one this coming up year, but like, I guess I guess the hard part is like when I look at all the things that I've gone through, or like the feelings that I have, or more importantly, my friends who took their lives after this time. It's really tough to see it as like a
Mhm.
carrot for young kids, or like a recruitment tool without
Yeah.
any investment on the
Yeah.
people that actually did that, right? Because we always have enough
Yeah.
money for
Yeah.
war,
I know
but
what you
never
mean.
enough to
Yep.
cover the cost, right? And so that's kind of where
Yep.
I'm at with it. It's just like, that's fine, dude. But a nation is judged by the way it treats its veterans, and
Mhm.
we're not doing too hot right now. So
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of that, then after that Marja deployment, that was your first enlistment, and then
yeah, that
did
was
you get
it. I
out,
didn't want
or
to do
what was
anything
your
else.
story? That
I mean,
okay.
like there was nothing. There
Yeah.
was no version of life where I wasn't deploying for the next 20 years. You know, it doesn't.
Yeah.
The only difference was I wasn't even going to be able to operate, which I don't want to be a staff sergeant overseas. That sucks. You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just wanted to get out, and I wanted to go to school, and so I did. There weren't a lot of schools that really understood the GI Bill then, except for one school like an hour away from my house. So I would get up every morning, um,
Mhm.
go to school Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I would go to school from like 8 to 12, with some changes every now and then.
Mhm.
And I couldn't get a job anywhere except at a local hospital as a medical receptionist. So 6 months after I was in Marja, I was a medical receptionist in a children's hospital working night shift. So I would go to school during the day, go till 12. I would sleep in my car in the parking lot. And then I would wake up around like 4 or 5, work out, go to work at 7 p.m., get off work 7 a.m. Then my day was done. I did that for 3 years.
Mhm.
Just to
Jesus.
provide for
Yeah.
my family and to get things going until I was able to get a job working at a nonprofit. And then I was able to switch over to a university where I was able to do an adult degree program where I got my bachelor's and my master's.
Mhm.
But, yeah.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. So through that journey, then how did because I remember seeing you a while
Yeah.
back, but time is starting to
Mm-hmm.
like fade. Like I can't exactly place it. Like when did you start Veteran with a Sign? Because I remember seeing you do that, but I
It's
can't
okay.
place the year and everything. Like I said, everything's starting to become a
Yeah.
blur now. I'm like, I think that was a while ago, but when did that kind of start kicking off, and
Um,
why'd you do it? It's
it's not that.
ingenious.
It's
I
all
love
right.
it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'd done some writing before, and like T.M. Gibbons' Neff was in my unit. We went to boot camp together. The kid at the time,
Mhm.
he's still there actually. And we know each other for a long time, and he told me to do some writing. So I had written in various publications, to include the New York Times, a few times, and so
Mhm.
I was kind of itching to do more creative writing, and so I just saw people like posting signs with cardboard online, and I was like, I bet there's like a veteran version of this, where I can, fulfill my desire for attention. No, I can maybe make something and make like an online community that's a little bit healthier, a little bit nicer to each other, and a little bit kinder to each other. And so I started that in March of 2020. And I just
Okay.
just kind of put my best foot forward on it and just kept making signs. And I made this outfit that's based around my gym outfit, which is just black shorts and an OD green skivvy shirt because, I wear that. I had a bunch of those when I got out and I was like, that's a cool gym outfit. It's easy. And like every year I buy another pack of shirts and I throw away the transparent ones. Like, and so I did that. And, the first few months were brutal. A lot of dudes talking about my body, a lot of dudes talking about my body and my tattoos. They didn't get it, to say the least, because they'd be like, this guy's dumb. He wears the same thing every time. Or, why is he on the side of the road? Like, I don't. Everyone feels like their comment's incredible. Is a side tangent of mine. Is that everyone feels like this is a good one, and like, but like I don't know, and I just kept going because it like made me laugh and it made my friends laugh. So I just kind of kept my foot on the gas, and then like every now and then I'd be like, get help, get counseling, do whatever, because I've worked at nonprofits and I know organizations where I've been in the system. Like I've seen it firsthand. I've raised money. I've helped to pass legislation at a state level. I've done all these things. But, me on the side of the road, the cardboard sign seems to be a good way to disseminate information. So we're going to move with that. And so that's what I committed to. Just head down, keep moving. And it really started to kind of pick up a little bit of steam. And like May 1st or so, like I was getting ready to stop doing it. And one of the sailors who was on Captain Crozier's ship saw the post I made, and she shared it. And it said, "Bring back Captain Crozier." The guy who leaked all the stuff to CBS about his ship being sick. Yeah, all of his ship had COVID, and the Navy was like, "No, they don't." He's like, "Yes, they do. These kids are sick," and so he got relieved of his command, which never happens. And they relieved him his command, and the whole ship's like vibrating as they're like, "Captain Crozier." And so I literally just took the photo as I was walking out the door, and that like she shared it. A lot of people on her ship saw it, and then it like activated my whole archive, and then like everything just started just taking off, like crazy. And to a point now to where I'm just trying to figure out what to do, and I'm trying to expand the Veteran with a Sign universe. And so a canon event of that is a podcast. And so I made a podcast called the After Action Podcast, which is on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, whatever. And that was really just because I started noticing there was more conversation between me and others, like happening through like DMs or comments or whatever. That was like one-to-one. And I was like, what if they're asking me about it? Other people probably have questions too. Maybe I could expand on this stuff, or like expand on someone and their service or their experiences and talk about it in like a larger forum to like help people understand, the military experience and kind of dismantle some notions associated with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. Like I'm gonna have to check it. I saw you guys because you just recently.
I'm on like episode 8,
like episode 6 or so.
8, yeah.
8, yeah.
As of this recording, yes. And my most recent guest is Chris Craighead.
Yep. Yeah, I saw that. Yep. He's out of Salt Lake, or is he out of Texas?
No,
because you're out of
I'm
Texas,
Nashville.
correct?
Yeah.
Oh, you're Nashville.
He's
in. All right.
He's in Texas now.
Okay. Yeah, because I was gonna say I've seen him pop. Obviously, I've worked with him a little bit over at BRCC, slightly. I mean, we talked a few times, and he was just kind of getting on, I think, and then a bunch of so, and I think that was around like spring of 2022 or something like that. But yeah, I've seen him popping up more and more, and I know I remember his photo, and then I knew who he was when he showed up. But yeah, he's pretty cool. He's an interesting dude. He was a lot of fun to kind of talk with and bullshit with.
No, he's a good guy, and like he did Sean Ryan show, which is is something very, very specific. And like I am not that.
Yeah.
I will never be that, nor do I want to be that. That's
Hmm.
fine. Um,
Yeah. Hmm.
like everyone knows who the guy with the well, everyone's heard the story about the guy with that, but like that is
Yeah.
boring as
Exactly. Yeah.
shit. Like the God's honest truth is there's not much different between event to event other than people were highly trained and they succeeded at it, and that's incredible. But there's not really a lot of
Hmm.
nuance to that story. But like, just like my goal is to try and capture like a moment where it feels like you're just listening to dudes talk, and like it was really just me and him talking, like him talking about moving to America,
Yeah.
and like stuff that he's gone through, and then touching on that stuff a little bit. But like, I wanted people to meet the guy that I know, like, the guy
Yeah.
behind Chris Craighead, which everyone knows is not his real name, but like, the guy behind the mask,
Yeah.
and so that's the whole
Yeah.
goal is what I'm trying to do, and like,
Hmm.
it's the same thing with the signs. Like, there's just because what you see is there, I need you to think about it. Like, I'm trying to challenge myself
Hmm.
included to like look beyond the surface. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep. And I definitely agree with you too. I remember, I think I've talked with with other people too, and it still feels like yesterday, but I remember getting out and it's like, okay, now what do you do? Like like that was going to be a time in my life. Well, obviously you'd be
Yeah.
very proud of it. And I think people, you should be. But then it's like, what are you going to, it was more of like, it was weird in my head. It was kind of like, I remember telling myself, no one cares. It's like almost like starting
Uh
over.
huh.
Everyone cared. But at the same time, I remember thinking in my head, like, you have to almost, like, you still have to prove yourself. So when you get onto the next contract, you
Yeah.
have to prove yourself. You have to, when you get into film school, you have to prove yourself. Like, you can't rest on your laurels from,
Mm-hmm.
a few months ago. It was like this weird thing in my head, and it's just kind of like, no one cares. What are you going to do now? It was, and I just said that to
Yeah,
myself.
dude,
That
I'm
wasn't
bad
anything
about that.
I've told anybody. You know, and it's just like, it motivated me, but and like, I knew people cared, but it was just like, I just, like everything else I did, you got to move on, and you got to push yourself into the next goal, and start working on the next thing. And so even before I got out, it was like contract. Okay, I'm going to contract. I'm going to make this amount of money. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And same with film school. And so it is, like I said, I'll definitely have to check out your podcast, because it is cool hearing the service aspect, but also like what people do after. Like, what did you do? What happened to, like, it's been 15
Mm-hmm.
years. For me, I had my 15-year
Mm-hmm.
reunion 2 years ago or 3 years ago, from Iraq. And so, what is that? Like, what have you guys been moving on to? What's the next step? And it's amazing what people do that, having those conversations, and kind of, other people done some other pretty amazing things
Mm-hmm.
beyond that, yeah. And I agree with you. It's like finding out, the other side of people, the war fighting stuff is great by all means. Obviously we're doing, podcasting, we were discussing it, but it's awesome to hear about your story
Yeah.
afterwards too. Like Veteran with the Sign, you're working with nonprofits. How do we help veterans do more? Like, those signs are simple, but it's effective, and it's very, like, memorable.
It's
That's
just
what I'm
it's
saying.
just
Like,
a
it's
meme.
ingenious, and
Like
it's
it's
memorable,
just a meme. Like
Yeah,
that's
exactly. It's a meme.
so like
Yeah.
Jocko. I was just on Jocko last week, and it should be. Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Congrats, by the way. That's awesome.
That's really just
Yeah.
because of Ryan at the Travis Manion Foundation. If you're going to support a veterans organization, support Travis Manion Foundation.
Mhm.
But like, he at one point, I think it was after the record, he goes, "They're just handwritten memes," and I was like, "Easy, dude. There's enough. You have enough businesses. Leave some for
Mhm.
me." And he was like, he understood it, because it is just me telling you something, because the goal is to create, when you're creating content, your goal is to create something that can be shared in order to create virility, which means that people can share your content, and it's an outward expression of saying, Ethan feels this way, this is what Ethan thinks. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
and I just want to tap into that. And like, I'm still trying to figure it out, like, every day. And the days that I want to quit, like, for sure, don't want to do this anymore, because it does take a lot of time,
Mhm.
and it does take a lot of like intention. And, because more than just making content, you got to engage and things like that. But like, every time I want to do it,
Mhm.
I have this folder in my phone. It says like vibes, and it says like good vibes, bad vibes. And it's just a screenshot. Like,
Mhm.
of people saying positive stuff and negative stuff, and it's, like 20 to 1 or something like that of good to bad. And because it's,
Hmm.
if I get upset about the bad, then I've got to also be happy for the good. But whenever they come in, I just stay in there. As long as that ratio kind of stays the same, then I'm okay with it. But and almost every person who said
Hmm.
something mean or hateful, or literally every person who said something, I'm like, within an hour they'll direct message me and apologize for it because they're just going through something, um, or they just don't
Yeah.
understand, or they have their own perspective and their own view on life, and that's fine. That's what makes this country incredible, is that we can do that. But
Hmm.
like, I always say I don't ever make anything to please anybody. I just kind of make stuff that I want to be proud of, if that makes sense. Because
Yeah.
if
No.
if I do things to, like, for clickbait, or say, let me know what you think in the comments below, like, you lose your credibility, in my opinion. And you're not really creating content, right? You're not really having a voice. You're just kind of making fodder. And like, I'm not saying I'm like Mark Twain and this will be like held up in anything like that. But what I'm saying is, like, um,
Yeah.
I I understand the thing that I've created, and now I just want to be responsible with it, if that makes sense, right? Like,
Yeah. Absolutely.
because I'm just here to
100%.
disrupt. I've
Yeah.
seen it. I've been on the inside. I've worked with the VA. I've worked with nonprofits. I have a bachelor's and I also have a master's. Like, I understand all of this stuff. And
Hmm.
the best way to get information out there is me like this. Like, hang on, this is really just me like
Yeah.
that, right? And so, if I can
Yeah.
continue to do
Yeah.
that and get people the help and the resources they need to live a life that's fulfilled and peaceful beyond the battlefield, then I will break every system I come across. Because the hard facts are, we're in a
Hmm.
place as a community where we're running out of time, where we can't use nice words anymore. There's no sense in, kind of curtailing or buffering or whatever it is, just like slowing down our pace. We've got to move with intention. Because since I got out of the Marine Corps,
Hmm.
I've lost more people after than I did to it. Push-ups aren't helping.
Hmm.
Campaigns aren't helping. What do we got to
Yeah.
do? We got to do whatever we can to break the system. So
Yep, yep. It's really cool that you're saying that, and interesting, because I just started, even in my own life, the last year and a half, maybe 2 years now. I think it's going on just a year and a half, 2 years, is getting
yeah,
involved with the foundation stuff, and then really trying to figure out, being like, okay, cool, like I'm ready to do that. Some guys I think are just, it's different timing. I
yeah,
was glad they existed right when I got out, but I never felt like, hey, I'm not going to take up a seat for this foundation if I don't feel the need to, but it's like I'm like, hey, let's do this. Like I definitely, and I want to help as well,
well, but
so that's
dude,
something that's,
that's the thing.
getting,
That's the thing. Your first
that,
thought is like, I'm taking from someone. And it starts even with like VA benefits. I'm taking from someone. We're not taking. It doesn't, there's no like limit. Everyone can eat, right? And I don't, we're the only ones that think this way. It
mm-hmm,
makes me insane. And I've been guilty of it too, but someone's like,
mm-hmm,
dude, file your claims. Because when you're in your 30s, as I am
yeah,
now, and it sounds like a bowl of Rice Krispie treats when I get up, snap, crackle, and pop. That's unusual for someone my age.
mm-hmm,
It shouldn't be that, but we've got all those
no,
things, and so
yeah,
you have to
I
take care of
agree,
yourself,
yeah,
because what
yeah,
you're really doing is you're investing in your health and your long term future to provide for your family and to be able to help others. Like,
mm-hmm,
we need to switch that to, like, I'm not
yep,
taking a seat. What I want it to be is like, oh, I'm going to pay it forward, right? Whatever someone gives
yep,
me, I'm putting out 10x. Like, and
yep,
and I've tried to do that in my own way of, like, I've done different treatments for psychedelic therapies, counseling, all these different things. And Lord have mercy, anything I do, I try to push my friends on it too, because I want them to see the light too. I want them to be
mm-hmm,
happy. I want them to be good dads and husbands and fathers and wives and mothers. Like, I want it for all of them.
mm-hmm,
And, like, we just have to really take a radical
yep,
approach to this, because we don't have much time left. And, like, that's just all there is to it. I'm
mm-hmm,
so sorry. I'm very passionate about
no,
this. Yeah.
eh. No, it's good. No, absolutely. And like I said, I 100% agree with you, because now we're seeing these more and more therapies. And like, I remember 10 years ago, guys with the VA getting
Oh
the
yeah.
pain pills and the opioids. And we were in a little Facebook group, and it was a tiny one. It was kind of guys in my unit and a few others. And there's about 300, 400 guys. And they post funny stuff. But then there was also this line of like, I can't keep taking these. I'm going to fucking kill myself. And guys were like, like, and then it was like almost like a self-help. It was like, just go and smoke the weed. Like,
Yeah,
just go
dude, they
do
used
it.
to send it
Like,
to you
fuck
in
the
the
meat. Just,
mail. They used to
and
send them to me in the mail.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was insane. And guys, and so that's why for me, like with like even the just weed or with edibles, it was like guys were like, just do that, get yourself off the opioids, get yourself off it. And like in the Minnesota National Guard, it's kind of like this like wild thing because I served in the Minnesota Guard for a while. They had the longest
Whoa.
deployment on record in Iraq. They did like 18 months on ground. This was like 04 to 06 or something like that, or 05 to 07, one of the two. And I knew guys from that, I obviously, Guard moves slower. So you just know guys from that deployment. They called it the Crusade. And guys were coming back from that, and they had a fucking bag full of pills. I mean, and then multiple guys were like, people were doing weird shit because they took them from battlefield back into civilian life, and
Yeah.
everything was fucked up. It wasn't even like they were like in formation on active duty for the next 2 years trying to figure shit out. You're with you. It's like split
Jesus.
off. Everyone just goes back to the
Lord
normal
have
life,
mercy.
and it was a disaster. Everything was a disaster. Yeah, yeah. And there was like guys were like they wouldn't know where they were when they were like because all the pills they were taking, like antidepressants and opioids, and guys were fucked up because they got blown up with IEDs. But then they were only coming in at a certain. It was nuts, and it was here in the guard side of the house because they deployed so much. You're like, holy fuck, man! Like, all the and trying to fix it. Guys were just trying to navigate their way through. And
Yeah.
obviously, you have divorces coming on, and then it's just like, and you're not even active duty. You think that it would be easier. Like, oh, I'm going back to my civilian life, my civilian job with my. And it's drastic. And nowadays, I think things are catching up with guys. I was with Clinton Romache the other week, and he's working with foundations to kind of. It's like they're tracking PTSD and suicide and depression. And I can't remember which foundation it was, but they're saying like the 10-year mark the 10-year mark is like the magic number for some reason, or at least on average, when guys, it starts hitting guys like
That's
panic attacks.
That makes sense. It's about where I was.
So
yeah. A little bit after because I was in college
guys
still.
That I know.
Stuff didn't really start manifesting until 2016 because like I was just too busy. I didn't have time to be like, I feel sad, but that's interesting.
Yeah, and that thing happened with me too in 2013. I didn't know it was a panic. I thought I just drank too much the night before, and I was like, oh, I'm dehydrated. I got to lay down, and so it didn't manifest. It like almost like delayed it. Like it delayed it until 2019, and then 2019, which was a 10-year mark, it was like I got hit with a hammer, and so it is. I think our generation is like, we need to address this. Here's different therapies, edibles, psychedelics, hyperbaric chambers, even like just like get back into shape a little bit, man. Like, hey, let's go hit that gym, go pound some weights, go fucking, go for a walk, get your running back in, like set those goals. Cold, even the cold water therapy stuff, like, it's like, I know a guy who's been doing that, and he's
dude,
like,
it is. I mean, it's,
so
there's just so many, there's just so many things available
awesome
to us all. And I apologize. I have to go get my kid in like 5 minutes, but there's just so many things available to us that we need to take like a legit guerrilla marketing type approach to this of like whatever works. Because oddly enough, if we take heroin and we call it a pill, it's not really good for people. Who could have predicted that? Anyone really. But like who saw it coming?
Exactly.
Everyone. No one cared. But like we've got to dissociate our feelings with it, because like the reality of it is like the older you and I get until we're like 55, I think it is, up until that point, like the day before, is the greatest chance that we'll commit suicide. But the day after, we drop off like significantly, like almost no concern at all. But up until I think it's 55, there's a statistic I saw on it. I'll pressure me to send it, but it was something that like we only stand to increase in chance of taking our lives, and like that's the goal I'm looking at. I need to make it to 55 in one day right now, because statistically I'll be fine. I'll probably live to 105 or whatever. But like, that's all I think about is that we're so connected, but we're so isolated, and we've just got to break the system, right? And whatever it takes to do that. If it's me with cardboard, if it's whatever. I mean, there are so many people that are doing so many incredible things. Semper Fi Fund, Gary Sinise Foundation, Travis Manion Foundation. Like, those are organizations that are really doing good stuff for people. And like, we need to lean into the idea that it's okay to be different after war, because if not, you're crazy and a liar, right? Because if you're not different after war, you're just not being honest to yourself. And if you can't be honest with the experiences you have, Lord knows you won't be able to get the help you need, because you won't be brave enough to be honest then. We got to change that.
No, I agree. Awesome. It was a great podcast, bro. Where can people find you? And you have any websites?
Sure. Everyone, please, or Ethan will beat me up. Go like, comment, subscribe. After Action Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Rate and review. Please check it out. My first interview ever was Michael Colazzo, Marine Corps veteran, who responded to the active school shooter in March 2023 and even took the target down. And he tells his story for the first time ever he's ever told it.
That's awesome.
He's become a dear friend of mine, and he approached me about doing it, and so we did the best we could. And everything else is in between. We got an episode with Austin Alexander coming up, Eric Bartel, and a few other guests, Nora, Infidel Nora, all these different people, but people who just want to try and tell their story. But you can also find me anywhere, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Veteran with a Sign, and veteranwithasign.com is my website with some merch as well. You can check it all out there. But, man, I'm just excited to be here. Ethan, you're someone I look up to. I know who you are. I'm not going to downplay. You're like the king of journalism. I stopped playing. I know Marty and everyone speaks highly of you. I've known who you are for some time, and I'm really honored to be here. I can't thank you enough.
Oh, dude, thank you. You're making me thank you, man. I'm pumped to talk with you.
Pleasure.
I'm glad we finally met. This is amazing. You do great work. You do amazing stuff. All right, brother. We'll catch up again.
Thank you.
Have a great day, and thanks for coming on.